happiness. Isn't that the decision we all made?
Oh. But you know the truth, don't you? There's not a thing I can tell you that you don't already know. Is there?
Have you had your joy, Ollie?
People in town are getting a tad bit skinny. I think they're starving to death. And they're painting the streets in fucking rainbows. Have you not noticed?
Oh, Ollie.
Why are you all wearing those ridiculous new masks?
You should get one. They shape your face into a smile. And when you smile, you can't help being happy.
We have to tell people. They need to know the truth.
No! It's better not to know.
Wakey, wakey, everyone. And it's another fabulous day in Wellington Wells. Do what you should be doing, and you never have to worry.
Sally?
Arthur, we're practically the only two people in this entire city not stoned out of our minds on joy.
It's not a lovely day for it. It's a fucking terrible day for it.
If you force people to have the emotions you want, then you've turned them into robots made out of meat.
Where is it? Where's the blackberry?
You've gone too far this time.
People won't face facts. Not until we take their joy. And when we do that, they'll murder each other in the street.
Versions of the game out in the public since about 2015. So that's almost 3 years ago now. Because we had our Kickstarter campaign, and one of the things we said was, okay, well, if you back as part of the Kickstarter campaign, you can jump in and give us feedback and see how the game develops. And that sort of has kept going for the last 3 years, while we've also been building the story behind the game, which is what's coming out in August. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's right. You actually have a specific release date, August 10th, 2018. It's coming out for PC, Xbox, and PS4. Something happened with the Compulsion Games.
Yeah, so sort of a big surprise for everyone, but we were acquired by Microsoft. So we're a big part of the Microsoft family now, which is very exciting for us. Pretty big opportunity. Yeah.
Excellent. What does something like that mean for a game dev?
Never get in here.
I think it depends on the game dev, but for us it means we have a very supportive giant family that we didn't have before.
Right. Okay.
You know, we've spent the last 9 years of the company's operation is basically pulling together everything we can and scraping together to get everything as good as we can make it. But I think what Microsoft offers us is an opportunity to say, okay, well, what if you don't have to worry so much about where your sandwich is coming from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead you worry about, okay, well, how can we push and build something that's even more interesting? And I think that's what's exciting to us. Yeah.
So you mentioned you're adding a story to the game. Can you talk a little bit about the story?
Well, so the story is, it's something that we've planned for quite a long time, but because we were in early access, we felt like a story was not really a good place, like a good thing to put in early access. We've been building it really since the beginning, but 2 years ago on early access, we realized that that was the part of the game that people cared the most about. And so we thought, okay, we really need to go a lot bigger than what we were doing. So we went and we thought, okay, we need to refinance the game. We basically tripled our team size from about 15 to 40 people. We started working with Gearbox Publishing, who have been able to provide us with additional support, whether that's through QA or user research or localization help and ratings and production advice and things like that. And now we feel like, we've got the game that I think everybody wants to play. Yeah.
So for those who maybe haven't heard of We Happy Few, what is it about?
So it's a game set in a 1960s alternative history dystopian English town called Wellington Wells. And it's a game about a society that is using a drug called joy to forget about the trauma that has happened to them in the past. It's a game about denial and about, what happens if you just refuse to face the truth to the point that, you stop paying attention to all the things that really matter. And it's, in terms of the gameplay, it's really hard to describe, I'm afraid. It's got elements of a lot of different games. It's loosely described, I'd say, a first-person, story-focused action-adventure game. But it has, elements of combat. It has elements of stealth. It has a completely changed and different survival system that ties into the lore of the game and sort of helps you understand why everything is the way it is. It has elements of what we call social conformity. So the idea of saying, hey, if you blend in with those people, they'll sort of accept you a little bit. Obviously not this particular part, which is where you've been abducted and forced to fight against an old friend. Well, he's not really a friend, he's a bit of a bastard, actually. But that's all right. So this is a bit of reluctant tutorials. Everything we do in the game, we try to couch all of the gameplay teaching and all of these moments with something that isn't just a, hey, you can do this. It's more of a, you find yourself in a somewhat awkward position.
Right.
And in this case, you're being forced to, beat up a guy who you used to work with.
I remember when I started playing the alpha, the demo, you choose not to take your medicine, the
That's
joy.
Right. That's right.
And it seems like the color and the all the brightness like kind of fades from the world, and you see it for what it really is. Because is it still the same that the joy drug kind of makes you see everything with rose-colored glasses, like everything is fine and nothing is wrong, and then when you stop taking it, is it similar to that still?
It is absolutely, except it's way better.
Okay.
It's way better than it was.
Okay.
So, see, parts of the walls are moving and there are flowing coloured lines over everything, and the trees bloom with crazy colours, and people, it's a bit blurry and there's fog everywhere. But basically the whole point is, it's a beautiful rose-tinted absolute lie that you get to experience by taking joy.
I've always liked the question, the rhetorical, or not rhetorical, the hypothetical question that you could pose to yourself, like, would you stay in bliss knowing it was a lie? It's a tough question. I think I'm sure the game tackles that.
I mean, I think you could arguably say that's the sort of a great summary of the story.
Yeah.
Right? That's the fiction. That's the world. It's very much about trying to challenge you. What would you do in that society?
So when this game came out in early access, you launched it again in early access. It was multiplayer, right?
No.
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 Okay, so because it seems like it was something very different than it is right now.
It is. It's funny because at the beginning of development, G, the creative director, and I sat down and we said, okay, we can manage one crazy technical thing, and we can't do both procedural cities and multiplayer. So we said, we'll do procedural cities. And we've always thought, maybe if we strike it big and we make something really amazing, we could do multiplayer. But really, it was more that the game was about an open world sandbox experience, which is very much like a multiplayer survival game. And that's exactly what we launched. So, you're quite right. And the reason we did that was that we were really trying to just test our gameplay mechanics. And so that was incredibly helpful because we realized we had some really good direction on a few of these things, but we really needed to do a much better job of introducing them, making them more robust. Basically.
So now you've introduced to that survival. Is that still an option in the game, or is it now this single-player campaign?
So the sandbox mode is going to be taken away at launch, and then we're going to bring it back after launch as basically just a free update. The goal being to make the story mode really good. We've had to ignore a few of the systemic things that we had developed previously. So, for example, in the early parts of the sandbox game, you'd have a lot of fights between the different factions in the world. But we found that tended to sort of break everything because they'd run in and kill all our quest NPCs, and you're kind of out of luck. So that will come back. And in the meantime, we've done something quite interesting with the survival system because we've changed it from like a, hey, if you run out of food, you will die immediately, into something that's more of a buff system. So when you're fully fed, you're better in combat. If you have drunk some water, you are able to sprint for longer. So you use it situationally to beef yourself up. And then if you don't do it for a long time, then we're trying to convince you, hey, this is a real world. There are consequences for not doing these things. And we debuff you as well. But you can turn that off if you want.
Looking at the pause menu or UI of the skill trees and stuff like that, it looks like it's got a lot of different options to adhere to other people's play styles, like how you want to play it. So if I wanted to go and just be super sneaky throughout the entire thing, could I do that?
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
So the goal, basically, we have these sort of complementary stealth systems. The social conformity is kind of like a social stealth.
Okay.
And then we've got actual stealth, which is just not being seen.